Well, Jason Schreier was the longtime Winnipeg City Councillor for Elmwood-East Kildonan, and his sudden death in April left a vacancy there. And now we know who is filling it. Emma Durand-Wood won the Elmwood-East Kildonan by-election over the weekend, but she didn't do it all on her own. She recruited the help of a lot of folks. We're going to hear from her in the next hour. But let's start the show with something cutie patootie, shall we? Because this is one of those people that helped. 8-year-old Joshua Oliver, he knocked on more than 1,000 doors during her campaign. CBC's Gavin Axelrod caught up with him on Saturday, and just to note, the sound quality on Gavin's voice is a little challenging, but it's worth it to hear young Joshua.
My name is Joshua William Oliver.
So you were working on the campaign, is that right?
Yes.
So tell me what your role was working on the campaign.
Well, pretty much anything. I helped do the door knocking.
What was that like?
It was great, but not so much when they didn't answer the door.
What do you think, why do you think people voted for Emma? Like, why do you think she won today?
Well, she's a great candidate, and that's only because of her kindness. She cares about the city. She wanted to stop fast. She wanted to stop fast drivers.
What did you learn from being part of a campaign like this?
I learned that connection with people is important, and also being a door knocker is great.
Do you think you'll ever want to run for city council maybe after doing something like this?
Maybe. Just maybe.
How old are you again?
I'm 8.
8. How did you even get involved in something like this at your age?
Well, my mother told me that she was running, and I decided to help. I asked her if I could help, and then that's how this whole charade started.
So is your mom friends with Emma, or?
Correct. We are both friends with her.
Just lastly, have you had a good time today?
Yep. This will be a memory to remember.
Well, I think we have a future candidate on our hands there if he would like to run. Well-spoken. That was CBC's Gavin Axelrod speaking with well-spoken young Joshua Oliver. 8 years old. He helped door knocking. He knocked on 1,000 doors during Emma Durand-Wood's campaign, which she won in Elmwood-East Kildonan. The new city councillor will join us live to talk about her priorities after 7 o'clock. And are you watching the World Series and you're going to be turning on the television tonight? The Toronto Blue Jays are in the middle of an unlikely World Series run in which they're tied 1-1 against the LA Dodgers. But beyond the action on the field are a lot of personal standout moments. Fans from coast to coast to coast are watching and cheering for, Canada's baseball team, the only one we've got left. This weekend, CBC's Cross Country Checkup got on the bandwagon and asked callers, what do the Blue Jays World Series run? What does the World Series run mean to you? Lots of stories and memories. Here's a little bit of what people were sharing across the country with host Ian Hannamansing.
My dad passed away from cancer in 2011, and he was a really big Jays fan. Most of my childhood has a baseball game playing in the background. So the Blue Jays team has always been representative of my dad for me. And actually, the last time that I said goodbye to my dad before he passed away, my family had a big family reunion at the Rogers Centre. We all came from all over Canada, splurged on a skybox, watched the game with my dad. So that was the last time that I saw him there before he passed away. So once they made it to the World Series, my family was texting. We were saying how my dad must be smiling and he's so excited. We've all just kind of reconnected. And it also makes me just feel so connected to my dad. I can put on his old Jays hat and his T-shirts, and just even the sound of the ball game in the background is very calming for me.
I have a couple of friends that I used to play softball with, and I remember when I used to watch the Jays in the 90s and they won, and we were all baseball and softball fans back in those days when we played the sport as well. And then this time around when Toronto won against Seattle, that 7th inning home run by George Springer, I remember thinking, holy smokes, they won. This is amazing. And I texted all of my old friends from softball, and all of them were in different places, but they all we couldn't believe it. We were all just, oh my gosh, this is happening. It's happening again. We were so excited. One of my friends, she was at the Calgary Flames Winnipeg Jets game in Calgary, and she said they stopped the game and put the home run on the Jumbotron, and the entire crowd was just erupted in cheers, right? It didn't matter if you were a Winnipeg Jets fan or a Calgary Flames fan, you were a Toronto Blue Jays fan and you were cheering for them that night. It was great.
When they won Game 7, I got on the Porter website, booked some flights, and I'm headed to Toronto. It's my grandmother's 97th birthday tomorrow, and she's a big Blue Jays fan. And my earliest Blue Jays memory was watching a game with her, and I try and make a point of visiting her when I'm in Toronto, which is often enough. And so I'm hoping to make Game 6. I'll be headed down there, and we'll watch the game together.
Lots of people with their own personal memories around the Blue Jays. That game, by the way, that Jets-Calgary game, I remember we had that in the news the next day. The Jets players saying that they were kind of one eye on the game and one eye on their game that night. We'll see what happens tonight. The Jays and the LA Dodgers, they now have a home field advantage. The series tied 1-1, and the Jays are practicing already in LA. Health Canada says about 70,000 people were accidentally approved for the new National Dental Plan due to a mistake in how income was calculated. Of those who were inaccurately assessed, roughly 28,000 people had already been to the dentist. Officials say the error has been fixed now, so no one's being asked to return the money. For a closer look, though, at what happened, Stephen Staples is with us now. He is with the Canadian Health Coalition, which is an advocacy group. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what happened? What went wrong?
Well, it's whoopsie, as you say. We're not really sure exactly what went wrong, but there's some things that we do know that, first of all, this is a federal program. The Canadian Dental Program is a federal program, so it's not hooked into any provincial government systems. It is administered through a contract with Sun Life, in fact. So the federal government, pretty hefty contract with Sun Life in order to figure out qualifications, handle all the benefits, payouts, and things like that. But the main thing is that I suspect here, and they said, well, they made a mistake calculating income. So the thing is, this program is not like other provincial programs. You know, when you go to have a baby in the hospital, nobody asks you how much money you make. But they do when you apply for the dental care plan. So if you have private insurance, you don't qualify. If your household income, not your personal income, your household income is over $90,000, so that's you and your spouse. If it's over $90,000, you don't get any coverage. If it's less than $70,000, you get 100%. If you're between $70,000 and $90,000, you get somewhere between 60 and 40% coverage. You see, it's very complicated. You can imagine the formula that they got to run through and all these databases that they got to have access to. So it's a very complicated system, and I think something went wrong here, obviously. The good news is people don't have to pay it back, but the bad news is 28,000 people who need the care can't get it anymore. So I think that's nothing to celebrate.
The program covers around 5 million Canadians, but fewer than half have used it. What does all this say to you about why, do you have a sense of why uptake has been seemingly low?
Well, it's a very new program, first of all. I mean, the budget... I was in Ottawa when the budget was approved in 2023. High fives all around the room. First major expansion of Medicare in a long time. So I think that was good news. It's just only been finally rolled out 100% this summer, so that everybody is now open to apply. And I think they should go on the Canadian government website and apply. Now, that 5 million figure that you mentioned, that's the number of people that have applied and were approved. Actually, the number of people that would qualify for the program is much higher. Probably a little over 8 million would probably be eligible for it. But the fact is, these people applied and haven't made use of it yet. Now, we don't know exactly why. Perhaps they've applied and have put the approval in their back pocket so that when they find time, they can go and get the care they need. But we don't know exactly why. In fact, I was in Ottawa just last week talking to researchers that have done some interviews with people that have used the program. And one of the factors that could potentially be at play here is the fact that people think it's going to be 100% coverage, just like going to a hospital. And they may be surprised to find out that they may be assessed with between 40 and 60% of the bill based on their family income. There could be extra charges that are charged by the dentist, perhaps. And this might be a barrier for them getting the care they need, which is not good because, good dental care is a preventative kind of treatment. It's your mouth is connected to your whole body. It's not separate. And these problems can get more complicated and, frankly, more expensive to treat down the road. So we want to get people involved in this program, but there's still some tweaks to be made for sure.
What are the other tweaks, as you put it? You just mentioned one of the barriers that could be changed. Maybe clearly articulating through an education plan, maybe that A, the program's there, and B, that it's not 100%, so people should be aware of that. But what else do you think is proving to be a barrier for this that could be improved?
Yeah, I've seen some of the ads for the Canadian Dental Care Plan. I think that the government is doing what they can to get people to sign up, and I would encourage people to do that. But one of the things is I think that we need to move this much more toward what our provincial healthcare system is, which is universal. The Prime Minister said, during the campaign, healthcare is a right. Well, rights aren't conditional based on your income. I think it should be available to everybody, should have access to this plan. So first steps would be to begin to roll back some of these complicated tests of your income. If we removed some of these barriers, between 70 and 90,000, 60, 40% of coverage, very complicated. Let's make it simple. Let's make it 100% coverage. And I don't know about that $90,000 qualification. $90,000 is not a lot for a household income. That's at least two people. So I think we could either move that up or get rid of it eventually down the road. It'll cost a little bit more, but let's make it much more like our provincial healthcare system, which is universal and covers everybody.
Thank you for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
With us explaining what went wrong with some of the distribution of the National Dental Plan, Stephen Staples, their National Director of Policy and Advocacy with the Canadian Health Coalition. In case you missed the top of our conversation, Health Canada says about 70,000 people were accidentally approved for the new National Dental Plan because of a mistake in how income was calculated. Well, because the last story was about Jays, why don't we go right into our next story? It's also about Blue Jays. It's about baseball. It's about language, though. CBC's Blair Sanderson steps up to the plate to examine why so many popular idioms come from baseball.
Okay, right off the bat, let's just say that baseball is a major league contributor to the richness of the English language. Anne Curzan is a professor of English linguistics at the University of Michigan. She says there are countless idioms and expressions that come from the sport.
There are so many. Knock it out of the park. You can strike out, be a heavy hitter, off base. Let's touch base, pinch hit, strike out. It's a whole new ball game. These terms are everywhere.
And there are even expressions from baseball that seem completely out of left field.
Rain check was first used in baseball. No way to know that from just looking at rain check, but the evidence we have, it was first used to help people see a game. If a game got rained out, they got a rain check.
By comparison, other sports just don't pack the same linguistic punch, except for maybe boxing. It does go blow for blow with baseball. But idioms from hockey?
I will be able to do this. I was like, icing. Do we have any meaning of icing? Penalty box. Put in the penalty box.
Elbows up is also in the zeitgeist right now, but hockey really isn't even in the same ballpark as baseball. Stuart Webb is an applied linguist at Western University in Ontario.
My guess is the reason there are so many baseball idioms is that there's 162 games in a season, and it's a sport that's been around a long time. So if we compare it to American football or Canadian football, where we in the past only had 16 games in a season, there's fewer opportunities to encounter these idioms.
These idioms are of particular interest to Webb because he studies what it takes to understand English as a second language.
I look at questions such as how many words do you need to know to understand a TV program or read a novel.
Okay, how many words do you need to know to watch a show like Friends?
3,000. The most frequent 3,000 words.
But he admits idioms throw a wrinkle into that.
Mind if I take a rain check? I'm waiting for a call from Emily.
Webb says someone learning English who knows the words rain and check might still be confused. And that's a problem.
If you don't understand the idioms that are used, and they are used all the time, you're constantly on the outside.
Anne-Marie Fowler is an ESL instructor who teaches a whole section on expressions that come from sports. She says even though they do have the potential to confuse, idioms are a powerful form of expression. She uses knock it out of the park as an example.
Let's just say I've got a coworker who just did a presentation. She was feeling a bit nervous about it. And I want to tell her that she did a great job. So I can absolutely say, wow, that was fantastic. You did a great job on the presentation. But if I said, wow, that was a great presentation, you knocked it out of the park, suddenly it's not just a group of words that sound nice. It's a mental image of someone hitting a ball over the fence. I mean, that momentary picture in our mind completely transforms how we feel in that moment. So it creates a more powerful image. It allows us to express ourselves with that increased precision.
For CBC Radio, I'm Blair Sanderson.
So were you counting? In that piece, there were a total of 12 idioms that come from baseball. And these are ones that didn't make it into that piece. Playing hardball, throwing a curveball, swing for the fences, bush league, going to bat, and getting to first base. Well, next on the show, Prime Minister Mark Carney is on his first trip to Asia since taking office with the aim of strengthening ties in the region. It comes as Carney said repeatedly Canada must diversify trade away from the U.S. Today, as you might have heard, Carney is in Kuala Lumpur. He's attending the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit, ASEAN. He also spoke just over an hour ago about his plans to expand Canada's non-U.S. exports. He also took questions about Trump's decision to, quote, terminate trade talks with Canada over Ontario's ad featuring Ronald Reagan's voice, which Hallie was just talking about. A reporter asked if he was upset with Ontario Premier Doug Ford about his decision to run the ad. Here's more of what he said.
In any complicated, high-stakes negotiation, you can get unexpected twists and turns, and you have to keep your cool during those situations. It doesn't pay to be upset. Emotions don't carry you very far. And we had made progress, to repeat. And we stand by the progress that had been made. The Government of Canada does. And we are ready, when appropriate, to pick that up. And I'll just re-emphasize that it is the responsibility of the Government of Canada to have these negotiations. And others will have opinions, and others welcome free advice, unsolicited advice is entirely appropriate. Every Canadian is a stakeholder in these negotiations. Every Canadian is a stakeholder in the fact that we're making progress in ASEAN, that we have the agreement with Indonesia, that we have just decided to accelerate trade talks with Philippines, with ASEAN as a whole. Every Canadian has a stakeholder, is a stakeholder in the evolution of our relationship with China and the discussions that we will be having at APEC with giants there. So that's the focus, sans émotion. Et on va continuer comme ça.
Without emotion, and we'll continue along those
So that
lines.
is Prime Minister Mark Carney speaking in Kuala Lumpur earlier this morning. He mentioned APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, on Friday. He'll be in South Korea for that. U.S. President Donald Trump will be at both summits as well. Jeff Rubin's here to talk about everything. Economist and author of A Map to the New Normal, How Inflation, War, and Sanctions Will Change Your World Forever. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Let's start with the new stuff here. So Carney saying he's going to meet with China's President Xi Jinping. What concessions might Carney make to boost trade?
Well, the concession that he has to make is to drop the ridiculous 100% tariff that we imposed on Chinese electric vehicles, which in turn led them to imposing a 100% tariff on canola oil and pork and seafood, which, has cost Canadian farmers billions of dollars of income. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, what exactly are we protecting? We dovetailed a move that Biden did to ingratiate ourselves to Washington, the country that is now imposing tariffs against us. That would be a first step, but of course we have to go way beyond that. I mean, if we're going to replace the U.S. market, it's not like trade deals with Indonesia that we need.
Can you explain that then? So Carney signed the trade deal with Indonesia recently. Just give us some context. Obviously, Indonesia trade deal might be great, but it's not going to cut it. So explain that. And then, I think we've actually lost our guest, unfortunately. Really unfortunate. I don't think we actually have that much time to get him back. We've only got a few minutes before headlines, but Corey's going to try. What I'm going to ask him to explain is, the trade deals in terms of the amount of support, the dollar amount that we do with each country. So Indonesia, but the other countries are China and India. Those are the key traders in Asia that Canada is seeking to diversify with. Hi, Jeff. Sorry we lost you, especially because we're short on time. If you look at Indonesia and how much we trade with them, and then you look at China and India being key trade partners as we seek to diversify, will that do it? Good deals with those three?
We did $5 billion of trade with Indonesia last year. We do that with the U.S. in 3 days, so that's not going to cut it. India, China, that can cut it. But here's the challenge. The challenge is that only 15% of Canadians favor greater trade with China, and even less, 5% with India. So even if Carney wants to go in that direction, is there political support for that kind of move? Well, there's going to have to be political support. I suspect that over time, as the economic pain from American tariffs increases, we'll move in that direction. The sooner we do, the better off for the Canadian economy.
Meantime, Carney and Trump will cross paths in Asia. What's the follow-up between them in the trade negotiations, in your view? A lot of people are talking about this
I think far too much attention is paid about the personal relationship between Carney and Trump. Here's the question that Canadians need to ask themselves. What happens next year when the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement comes up for renewal? I think, contrary to what Prime Minister Carney is telling us, that's a dead man walking. The U.S. isn't going to renew it. And if they don't renew it, right now, 85% of our exports go to the U.S. tariff-free. Next year, without that deal, 0% of our exports will go to the U.S. tariff-free. So if we need to find new trade partners today, think of how much more urgent that task will be tomorrow.
So does that mean, just last briefly, when you're saying paying too much attention to the relationship, wouldn't that be a reason to lean into the relationship and try to strengthen it in some way? Or you think that ship sailed?
It's not about the relationship. It really isn't about the relationship. This is what it's about. The American market is way more important to the Canadian economy than the U.S. market, than the Canadian market is to the American economy. Donald Trump understands that. He's holding all the cards. So it really isn't about Prime Minister Carney's negotiating skills. It's about the fact that we're not holding the cards.
We're in tough. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your analysis.
My pleasure. Take care.
Jeff Rubin, economist and author of A Map to the New Normal. Well, community activist Emma Durand-Wood won the by-election, as we mentioned, for the council seat in Elmwood-East Kildonan over the weekend. The by-election was first called after the sudden death of Jason Schreier, the area's former longtime councillor who passed away in April. She was up against 6 other candidates, and she won by more than 1,500 votes, so winning handily. And she's in studio to talk more about her campaign in her neighbourhood. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. How do you feel being a city councillor?
It is completely surreal.
Why did you want to do it? What motivated you to run in Elmwood-EK?
Well, I never thought I would do anything like this in my life, but after Councillor Schreier passed away, people were talking about, who's going to represent us next. And I had just so many neighbors and fellow advocates and friends and family encourage me to run and say they really wanted to do a campaign with me. And so we've had a completely community-driven campaign. And I just decided it was something I would do for the community.
Tell me a little bit about who you'd like to thank and what it felt like on Saturday when you realized, oh, okay, then, yeah, I'm going to be a city councillor. I've won.
Yeah, well, I mean, my campaign team, which I had a core team of people who all just poured their hearts into things, and also a huge team of volunteers. We had over 100 volunteers over the course of the campaign, 50 volunteers working on E-Day. So it was just fantastic effort. All my folks who donated and just supported me in any way. And also a big thanks to all the folks who worked through the city and for elections on the day of, just making sure we had, fair and accurate elections. I think it's really important to acknowledge their work too.
You have lived in the neighborhood for a long time. You've also been, as I mentioned, advocate, a volunteer. You've worked with Trees Winnipeg. You've done a whole bunch of different things with the Elmwood Resource Centre out there, which is always a really active one. What are your top priorities for the neighborhood that you think really need doing?
Well, it was really interesting over the course of 4 months, knocking on almost every door in the ward and getting a sense of, what's important to people. And a lot of the things that came up were things that were already things that I thought were important to work on. So the biggest ones, reducing crime and reducing homelessness. People want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. They want their fellow Winnipeggers to have appropriate housing, and so that's a big one. And for me, that looks like doing everything we can to reduce poverty, because there's such strong links between poverty and crime. Transit came up a lot, people having mixed experiences with our new system. I'm a transit user too, so I've been experiencing them as well. And I think the message is really clear. We need more investment in transit. And then just investing in community, especially investing in youth and making sure young people are connected in their communities, have, safe and productive ways to stay out of trouble, and just have a good life.
In terms of what some of these issues look like specific to Elmwood, because a lot of our neighborhoods are talking transit and crime and homelessness, because these are citywide issues as well. For example, how's transit changes playing out? You said you use the bus. Could you use... The city wants to hear, and you're a councillor now.
And I have sent in my feedback to 311, just like everyone else.
What's the concern out in Elmwood?
So I think, the early ending, not having service late enough, especially for those folks who are working shifts or, just want to come home from a night on the town, it's really important that we have transit that meets, those needs. Stop placements, there's been some concerns from folks. I talked to one gentleman who's vision impaired. He bought his house because of the proximity to transit, and now it's all changed. So that's a big challenge. So, how can we meet the needs of those folks? For me, I see, some routes have really improved and some routes have kind of gone downhill. It feels like a bit of a downgrade in service.
We covered a couple of by-elections at other governmental levels, provincial and federal, in Elmwood-EK. And so I was out in that neighborhood talking to people, and crime did come up a lot. What do you hope might change, especially given that when you look at crime sort of in Osborne Village, for example, you have a pocket neighborhood where, they set up an office now, they have a place to go. Elmwood's sort of spread out along Henderson Highway with its pocket neighborhoods behind, and then it spreads that way to the, to the east. So what do you see that could help with crime?
Yeah. Well, something that I see already helping is the Elmwood Unity Walk. And so that's one of these sort of community-based patrols that's out there, just having a positive presence in the community and connecting with people who might need extra services, letting them know that there's someone that they can trust that wants to build up a relationship with them and get them things that they need. And I think that's a template we could be using in a lot more places, because they do a lot of work monitoring in sort of one part of Elmwood and checking out encampments and keeping tabs on things. But it's a great solution. And I just heard from someone the other day that he feels some of the improvements in Osborne Village are really having a positive impact. So we could look at maybe bringing that into Elmwood as well.
You said you have also said you want to fix budget woes with, quote, we need to do away with unaffordable mega projects and focus on many, many small impactful projects that need doing in our neighborhoods, end quote. Mega projects, what are you thinking about?
Well, I think we're talking about Keniston. I think we're talking about Chief Pegwis. These are huge, huge, huge projects. And it's not to say that, some components of them are not important. Obviously the bridge in the Keniston project, that has to be done. But in terms of widening roads, it's very, very, very expensive. We already have a huge infrastructure deficit, which means we can't pay for what we already have. So why are we talking about adding more?
You also want to reduce, this is an interesting promise you made, you want to reduce residential speed limits to 30 kilometers per hour, which has been a pilot in some neighborhoods of the city. Mm-hmm. We haven't fully gone there. Why do you believe that that's something that's needed in your neighborhood, in Elmwood-EK, in your ward?
Yeah, well, so it's first of all, it's what science shows is what's needed to make everybody safer. It just makes people a lot safer from the risks of being hit by a vehicle, but it also reduces the number of collisions. And we have like 39 collisions a day on average in Winnipeg. That's a lot of people's lives disrupted in so many different ways. Very expensive, injuries. So that's what the science shows is kind of a best practice. But also prior to entering the race for this seat, I was involved in a group of folks who were out petitioning in the neighborhood and talking to hundreds of people, asking them their opinions on this. And going into it, I had the thought that it was going to be maybe controversial, maybe not popular. But we had a very high rate of people who were interested in having slower traffic on the street where they live. So I feel pretty confident. I know there's some naysayers out there, but I feel pretty confident that actually most people are in support of it or okay with it.
Just before you go this morning, tell Winnipeg, Manitoba, but your Winnipeg City Councillor, one thing about you that you see as your greatest strength as a City Councillor that you think, and one that you're like, okay, I'm going to have to work on that. For example, I'm very impatient. So, you'd have to bare your soul, but
right.
Just to get to know you a little bit.
Well, I would say I'm a very collaborative person, and I think that's the way that you get things done. You have to work with people. You have to find common ground. So I think that's a strength that I bring. Something I will need to work on is I'm an introvert. It's that'll be a challenge being kind of on all the time. So I'll have to work on that.
Oh, that'll also come in handy when you're one-on-one with people on the phone, though.
Yeah.
And now they're going to call you.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Emma Durand-Wood. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.
That is the new city councillor for the city of Winnipeg. Full complement of councillors now. Emma Durand-Wood has won the seat in Elmwood-East Kildonan. She won handily on Saturday. If you want to read our coverage of that night in the story, cbc.ca/Manitoba. There are so many ways to track our health now. For example, wearables. Maybe you have one on this morning. They assess things like stress, sleep quality, even blood oxygen and sugar levels. Now a type of technology, though, is emerging for health monitoring that goes somewhere that we actually haven't gone before. In our toilets. CBC's Jason Osler has more.
That sound is more than just a toilet flush to Emma Durand-Wood. It's the sound of valuable data escaping. She's a professor of microbiology and Canada Research Chair at the University of Guelph.
A lot of people probably don't really want to look in the toilet. You want to flush it away and get rid of it as quickly as you can. But it can actually give you lots of information.
As in information on what's happening in the body. Now, products are emerging to help us better understand that. Like this one from Kohler that attaches to your toilet bowl and has cameras facing the water.
Dakota uses advanced spectroscopy sensors to seamlessly analyze what your body leaves behind. Its sleek, self-clamping design blends seamlessly into any bathroom.
The company claims the device will help give someone a better picture of their gut health. After authorizing use of the device with your fingerprint, it uses the cameras and sensors to assess what it's seeing and sends analysis to the company's app. It's not available in Canada just yet, but it costs $600 and also requires a subscription. There's another similar device called Throne One coming to market as well. Throne CEO Scott Hickel explained recently on the Air CFO podcast what he hopes it can help achieve.
The ultimate vision is to build what we call the smoke detector for colon cancer, which will ultimately save lives by getting people in to get colonoscopies earlier than they otherwise would.
There's even a product called the U-Scan Nutrio from a company called Withings that analyzes liquid.
A groundbreaking way to track your body's response to nutrition through the world's first toilet plug-in urine scanner.
Emma Durand-Wood says while she can't speak to how accurate or reliable any of these devices are, the idea of regular monitoring has merit compared to a singular sample you may provide at a doctor's appointment.
You can get a much better view of what's going on if you take a daily sample. Over time, that's where AI is really going to help you because it will be able to sort of see where changes are happening and perhaps, again, predict changes in your health that might benefit from early intervention.
Durand-Wood says there's an added interest in gut health right now. She even receives unsolicited emails sometimes where people send her pictures of their toilet bowls for her to assess. Durand-Wood says she wonders if this new tech for toilets would ever be used by the people who might benefit most. those who don't pay attention to their health.
My fear is, though, that the kinds of people that would subscribe to this kind of technology at the moment are the kinds of people that perhaps worry too much about their health. And this just gives them another thing to worry about, if you like. It's very good to be aware of what's going on in your body. It's not very good at all to panic about every little change that happens.
The toilet attachments speak to a point in time where health tech is advancing quickly.
It's really a super interesting time, I think.
Carolyn Sperry is an associate professor of mechatronic systems engineering at Simon Fraser University.
There certainly are a lot of great camera technologies that are used in a huge range of medical applications. So even one of my colleagues has developed a camera technology that does analysis of moles so that you can detect whether or not a mole is likely to be cancerous or not.
But Sperry has her reservations about the toilet cameras and the accuracy of what they're seeing.
There's a pool of water that you've now got to image through, and light gets distorted when it travels through fluids as opposed to air. Is it even as simple as somebody's got higher water pressure, they've got more water in their toilet bowl, and now that changes your image quality? Like, there's so many factors in there to look at.
And Sperry says not only are there those types of factors, there's also accounting for the fact that every single person's body is different.
There's lots of different ways you could be looking at different optical features, but then that becomes really difficult because in order to define what's not normal, you have to have a massive data set of what's normal. And in health research, everybody will tell you that there are always outliers.
Like any new health-related technology, there's a lot to consider as cameras for our toilets make their way to market. For CBC Radio, I'm Jason Osler.
Gotta look in the toilet, people. I'll never forget first year university. I was studying biology. I know. People are thinking, really? I thought I was going to be a lab technician. Anyway, I loved the sciences at that point in my life. And I was studying bio, and then I was sitting beside this guy, and he was in medicine. And he was so funny because he just came from some kind of a lecture, and all he said to me all class was, you have to look in the toilet. You need to look in the toilet. You need to understand the color of your urine, and here's what it means. Then he was pulling out a chart and showing me all his learning. He was so excited. But you know what? It's advice for our health, right? And now all these new tech ways to track everything in our bodies. Fascinating. It's been over a year since Manitoba started letting some people out of custody with ankle monitors. The devices use 24/7 GPS tracking. They allow authorities to communicate with the people wearing them in real time through voice, audio, and vibration commands. To try and prevent repeat offending and ensuring people on bail follow conditions. Now, data released, though, and obtained by CBC News shows that more than half of the people released with ankle monitors end up being rearrested or breaching their conditions. The CBC's Caitlyn Gowriluk has more on the numbers and what people involved in the justice system have to say about them. She's in studio with more. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what can you tell us about these numbers that you've got on these ankle monitors?
So since this initiative was introduced last August, we know now more than 500 people have been released wearing an ankle monitor, including over 160 people still wearing one in Manitoba as of October 16th. We also know that about 60% of the people released with those devices ended up either being rearrested or breaching their conditions while on release. That includes over 200 people rearrested either for breaches or for new crimes, more than 50 who just took the device off and took off, and more than a dozen who damaged the strap.
What can those numbers tell us about how well this initiative is working?
It sort of depends who you ask. So, for example, University of Winnipeg criminal justice prof. Michael Weinrath says there often is interest generally in electronic monitoring like this because that physical bracelet that people wear kind of gives this idea of security, right? Even if he says it doesn't necessarily always work that way. But he also says the latest numbers on Manitoba's ankle monitoring initiative shows it's been a failure.
I don't think you need a fella like myself with a PhD to tell people that these are not good numbers. I mean, they're pretty stark. You know, even the most optimistic or cautious observer would see that these statistics are very poor.
But on the other hand, you have someone like Christopher Gamby, who's a lawyer and the communications director for the Criminal Defense Lawyer Association of Manitoba. He says determining this initiative's success sort of depends how you measure that. So when an ankle monitor detects someone breaching their conditions, they're, say, out after curfew or they're somewhere they're not supposed to be, is that a failure because that person broke the rules? Or is it a success because the device caught them doing it?
If you believe that the objective of the program was to make it so that individuals would never reoffend and would never breach their conditions, I suppose you could suggest that the program was not doing what it is intended to do. But I don't think that's really what the actual intention is, and I don't think that's a realistic way to look at it. If you have individuals who are being rearrested for failing to comply with the program, that's probably a success story ultimately.
So where do the numbers come from? How do we get these?
So initially, we asked the province if they could give us these numbers, and they refused. But more recently, I heard similar numbers come up during a couple of bail hearings in court, where prosecutors were using these numbers, and specifically the fact that so many people on ankle monitors end up being rearrested, to argue against people's release during bail hearings. After we got those numbers, Justice Minister Matt Wieb's office then gave us more updated data.
So what else do prosecutors have to say, because you mentioned them, about the ankle monitoring numbers during those bail hearings?
So in one of the more recent hearings, a Crown attorney brought up these numbers to argue against bail for a man accused of domestic violence-related offences, saying those numbers really highlight the limits of releasing people on ankle monitors. And in another recent hearing for a prolific accused shoplifter, a different Crown attorney went even further, calling the ankle monitoring program's failure rate staggering. He also said his office was at the time working on another case where a person was accused of stealing from a drugstore while wearing an ankle monitor. Criminologist Michael Weinrath says this pattern of prosecutors using these numbers to argue ankle monitoring is ineffective presents a bit of a problem.
It's concerning that the Justice Department is investing in electronic monitoring, and the minister is pronouncing that they're making an effort to help Manitobans and keep them safe. And then internally, people who are working in the department are not supportive of the program, but you can't blame them.
If we just take a step back for a second here, Caitlyn, how long has Manitoba had the ankle monitoring program for, and what do we spend on it?
So the current iteration of this program was just brought back in August of last year, so 2024. The NDP budgeted $2.9 million over 2 years with the option to continue if the program was successful. It then later expanded the program from 100 devices up to 200 ankle monitors at an additional cost of $1.2 million for the year. That announcement, as we know, came during really heightened criticism of the bail system across Canada and calls for change from both inside Manitoba and across the country. And I should also say the current ankle monitoring program is also not the first time we've done this in Manitoba. So a similar program was scrapped by the previous PC government in 2017, which followed a review initiated when the prior NDP government was in power that determined the bracelets were often inaccurate or ineffective. And the ankle monitors there had been introduced in 2008 to keep an eye on chronic car thieves and later people convicted of domestic assault.
Yeah, I remember them around the car thieves. We had all kinds of problems with cars at that time being stolen here. So you talked to the Justice Minister. What does the minister say about the latest numbers then on the current ankle monitoring system?
So we talked to Justice Minister Matt Wieb about these numbers recently. He says he thinks ankle monitors have been successful in Manitoba, in part because of how they help police find people who have broken the rules.
If somebody breaches, or God forbid there is a serious offense that's committed while using the electronic monitoring, they now have the ability to go directly to that person, rearrest them, or bring them into custody. That's a tool that we just didn't have before.
What about criminologist Michael Weinrath and defense lawyer Christopher Gamby, who had differing opinions at the beginning of your report? What do they think should be the focus now that we have these numbers about how this ankle monitoring for people on bail is going?
So they may have, like you suggested, sort of disagreed on what the numbers showed us about ankle monitoring, but both Weinrath and Gamby talked about the importance of addressing the root causes of crime. Weinrath says he thinks that's probably a better way to spend the millions of dollars the province has budgeted for ankle monitors. And Gamby says while he doesn't think it's accurate to say ankle monitoring has failed, it does have limits, and it's ultimately not what's going to help reduce crime in Manitoba.
We should forget about this idea that we're going to control people and try to understand why it is they're doing what it is they're doing and do what we can to help them. That is probably a better way to go to reduce the incidence of crime in our province than making any modifications to bail or adding ankle monitors or anything of the sort. This is a limited tool and it should be viewed as such.
Caitlyn, thanks for coming in and explaining these numbers. They were really kind of startling when I heard them in the news.
You're welcome.
Caitlyn Gowriluk, her report, by the way, online, cbc.ca/Manitoba, if you want to read even more in detail. She, of course, is a reporter here with CBC Manitoba, covers a lot of our court and crime issues. Well, winter is coming, and it means, as I mentioned, time to maybe start thinking about winter tires and wheels. The best time to change them is when the temperature falls below 7 degrees for 7 consecutive days, according to MPI. So we're not quite there yet because we've had some seasonal, above normal seasonal conditions. But now is still a good time to start thinking about what your options might be. We first wanted to know if people know how to put on their winter wheels and tires themselves. CBC's Jennifer Dosso asked some drivers at the Forks.
Lyndon Patrick Agnes.
Okay, so have you ever changed a tire before?
Many times.
What was that experience like?
Most times it's okay, except for when I was in desert, it was too hot.
Ryan Precourt. The first time I changed it, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I knew how to do it and figured it out.
My name is Jan Yardley. Quite difficult, because I can't undo the nuts and bolts because they're all put on by machine.
Ontario Brady. It's difficult and quite horrible thing, but I would prefer somebody using other people to change it. But changing it yourself in a place like this is a bit difficult.
Who first taught you how to change your tire?
The internet?
Who first taught you how to change your own tire?
Nobody, self-taught.
Self-taught?
I just seen people and I just did it.
Who taught you how to change a tire?
The Girl Guides in the UK.
My dad taught me when I was very young then. That was when I was about 9-10 years then. We usually help him to change his tire.
So after hearing about that, are you inspired to do it yourself? Let's talk winter tires with our next guest. He's taught hundreds of students everything they need to know about changing wheels and tires. Patrick West is here, an instructor at the Automotive Service Technology program over at the Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology, and he joins us via Zoom, so you can watch if you're lucky as he walks us through this. Hey there, Patrick.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that you're right in the middle of the automotive section there. I can see the equipment around you in the background. What do you think when you were listening? Is it surprising to you that people find changing their wheels and tires difficult, that they don't know how to do it?
No, not really surprising. It can be a daunting task if you don't have the know-how for it or if you don't have the tools. And especially if you haven't done it before, it can be a challenging task to do for sure.
Who taught you how to do it?
Who taught me? I think I taught myself, actually. Thinking back to the first time I got a flat tire, I think I just figured it out on the side of the road.
What makes people nervous about it, do you think, in the first place? Because when you think about it, the principle of it shouldn't be nerve-wracking at all, right? You're going to undo some of the bolts and you're going to take the thing off and put something back on. What do you think makes people nervous about it?
I think what I stress about with my students here at MITT first is just the safety portion of it. So remembering starting off by doing it in an area, you need a flat, level surface, preferably something that's not wet. You know, you need to be comfortable working, and it's got to be a safe place for the car to sit for a couple minutes or however long it takes you to do the job.
If you are on the side of the road and you're having to do this, like if it's an emergency tire change and not a winter tire sort of seasonal thing, obviously that's just pull over even further. But what should you always have in your trunk just in case?
Most people start with spare tire. So actually, if you check the owner's manual in your car, which might be in the glove box, you might have a paper copy or you might have a DVD copy. Some vehicles have that, or a digital version you can access on your phone. But that'll have a section for spare tire that should tell you exactly where your tools are located and what tools you're going to need and what is all in the car.
You just cut out there at the very beginning of that answer. So you were saying that people, if they've never looked, are going to have some of these